Hello, I'm Michael Redmond, professional 9-dan Go player. In this video, I'll be looking at the 10th round of the 25th NONGSHIM Cup. This game had a lot of tactical fighting, so I'll be trying to follow the players' ideas and reading in this first fight of the game that we're looking at right now. And there was a decisive point in the middle game. And then there was a final invasion which decided, well, it finished off the game. So for those of you who want to dive into the Go immediately, you can look at the position we have here and try to find the shape move for black. It's a vital point in white's shape and how the players would continue. So that's something to think about for players who want to think about Go immediately watching this video. Meanwhile, I'll introduce the tournament. The NONGSHIM Cup has 3 teams, a Chinese, Korean, and a Japanese team of 5 players each. And each round has 1 game. And the loser is eliminated, and the winner goes on to the next round, in which the third country, the country that did not participate in that round, comes into the next round. So for instance, in the first round of this tournament, Kyokagen from Japan beat So Hyunjung from Korea. And so the Korean player was eliminated, and Kyokagen went on to play against Xie Erhao from China, who actually won 7 straight wins. So the Chinese team was doing really great up to this point in the tournament. And 4 players each from Japan and Korea were eliminated at the time of the 9th game of this tournament, in the 9th round, at which point Shin Jinseo came up. So he was the final player for Korea. And in this game, Iyama Yuta is the final player for Japan. So they're both with their backs to the wall, basically. One of these 2 players is going to win the tournament. He has to win all of his remaining games. So there's 4 Chinese players waiting to play. All right, let's get into the game then. Shin Jinseo has the black stones. It's a slightly unusual opening. Iyama likes to take it off the map and play moves that are less likely to have been researched by his opponent. So that's the 3-4 points here. And he plays unusual joseki choices too. So he tries to keep it different and more challenging for the opponent. So that's kind of a strategy. So it works well for veterans who have more general experience. Okay, so black plays a pincer here. You would often see black not pincering and playing something from the corner like this. So this would be a more common move. But it's okay to play a pincer here. And if white presses, which would be the most normal move, then black's just going to answer it. So I don't know about black 4. Sometimes that's played at N2 on the second line. So I'll show you that one too. This can be played also. If black is going to try to attack the white group later, so for instance, with something like this, and then later on with something like this, this kind of attack, sometimes it works better with that black stone at 4 on the second line. But it's a very subtle difference. So if we say something like this happened, then white would play a pincer. This would have been the most popular way for both players to play after black's pincer on the right side. Instead, white played here. So while this is a relatively unusual move in modern Go, it is a joseki that's been around for a while, and the idea is to make use of white's strong position in the lower left corner. So for instance, it would have been an option to play something like this and build on the bottom side, after which black would play on this side, and white would play some kind of a pincer on the left side. And white would have a position on the bottom side. So that would be the basic way to use white's pincer at N4 would be to build the bottom side. White's going to be a bit more active here. And white played the shoulder hit. So another idea with this pincer at N4 is to play this shoulder hit and hopefully to sort of connect on the outside and isolate black's corner position, forcing black to defend it with something like R4. So there's an idea to do that. And it's similar to what happened. Although at this point, white covered. It made it much more exciting. If white had extended, that would have been the old school move. Just extending towards the center is supposed to be good. And something like this might happen. A lot depends. In this opening, white's not really got any territory there. It's not accomplished a lot. But white did force black to a low position on the bottom side. And a lot depends on how successful white's going to be invading the right side, because that right side is too big for white to leave it. And white would be diving in, maybe somewhere around here, and trying to erase that side. So it would develop into a fight on the right side. So instead, white covers here, starting to make a base and making the slide at S3 more effective. So like if black were to play some passive move, then white would probably just slide here. And in this case, white would have a real territory there with something like 10 points there. And also white would still be isolating that black group in the corner. And white would still have ideas of invading the right side. So black kicked here. So this settles the corner, and it takes away a part of white's base. So white plays the hane on top of the black stones, and we get into a fight here. So this fight is probably okay for black, because white's group on the right there is weaker than the black 3 stones on the right side. So if we compare these two groups, these stones have a tendency to be isolated if white's not careful, while these stones find it relatively easy to link up to the top right corner. So black has a slight advantage in the local fight. A lot depends on how white can handle that. So white played an Atari, so white's getting out into the center, but also has to take care of this stone. And black pushes twice, and this is an important shape move. The combination of taking both of those points fills white's liberties and creates what we call damezumari, or shortage of liberties, for the 3 white stones. After this, so we're getting to the point where the position I showed you at first. Black's group on the right side is pretty much okay, because if white plays something like this, black still has room to escape towards the side. If white plays something on the 3rd line, though, black is long enough to be pushing out into the center here. So black is tall enough that black doesn't have to worry about that very much. So actually the game move was here, and that's a kind of a tricky idea. So we'll talk about the straightforward answer to my question that I posed at the start of this video. The shape move, the move that destroys white's shape, is this one. So this would be a shape move, and white will have some trouble connecting everything up. So like a move like this would be very painful, in that black would be getting forcing moves here, and white's shape would not be very good. So like would be connecting a lot of dame points, while black reinforced the corner. And so this would be a good way for black to take away white's eye space. Therefore, white would like to be able to counterattack, and white really wants to play this move. So when this happens, black has a choice of cutting on the right or the left. After black cuts, white cannot play an Atari against that move, because it's the snapback shape. So white has to connect here, and black can take here. So this was actually viable. It was a move that black could have played. It does ruin white's eye shape, and it has the value of reinforcing that group on the side, and actually it reinforces black's group in the corner also. So it reinforces all of those groups while taking away white's base. Black could have done that immediately, but he did not. So he had a completely different idea when he played once here. Naturally, white would want to answer that, and then he played here. And basically, it's the same thing with some passive move, which would just be sort of painful for white to be connecting points like this. It would just be painful. A move like this would actually be very dangerous, because black would be able to cut with the snapback and then cut up the whole thing. So he had to play the passive move, but he wants to push through here. So this actually combines with the previous move here to create a completely different attack, where black cuts on the 5th line, still threatening the snapback if white plays any kind of Atari. So black gets to squeeze from here. And at this point, if white plays any kind of counterattack on Atari, then it's going to be a double Atari, and white's going to lose that stone on the 4th line. So white can't do anything here, and probably has to just capture. So this is what black was trying to do with the exchange of these 2 stones. He was creating a shortage of liberties where he could squeeze from the outside, getting a good position on the bottom side. So white had to play the submissive move there. And at this point already white's lost his eye space. So that's how the key point worked. And so white was forced down onto the third line there. That was a little attack against the corner, but the corner is strong now, and white jumped out. Something that I learned from the computer is that black should have peeped here. And this makes sense because later on in the game, white might change how he answers. So if white answers here, this is going to be a ladder on this side. So that's going to be bad for white. So white is going to answer directly. So let's say maybe here, in which case black would always have the connection underneath. Or if white answers here, again, black can connect just once, and then black's going to leave it. So the value of this is that black can, it comes into play after white plays here, and those two black stones are going to help black make two eyes. So black would not have to answer that white move, actually. And so white 6 ceases to be forcing. So the reason black had to play it now is that later on in the game, if white plays here, it might be too late. So in this case, we can conceive a variation like this, where black didn't get to push through in 5. Or if black does push through at 5 at this point, then the corner is going to be in danger. And so you can see how 2 was a bit too late in this case. And it would be more effective if black had played it before the corner is threatened, in which case it would force white to connect at N3 or M2, one of those two. So that's something that AlphaGo was suggesting, and it's something that made sense to me. So white played a distant pincer, and these black stones do not have two eyes. So white's trying to split the black group on the side from the top right corner. So this attempt to attack black is going to be one of the decisive points in the game, where white is trying to make an attack. So the 2-space Kakari at Q13 and this attachment are a combination you see when white's trying to play some forcing moves against the corner. So the idea with white is he's going to give black that territory in the top right corner, and in the process white is going to try to create a strong group on the outside so that white can attack the group on the side. So that's what white is trying to do. And so black plays here, white plays here, and black is going after that stone in the corner. So if white had tried to live with something like this, then black would probably just connect up to the side or something. And white's going to live in the corner, but white is going to lose those stones in the center. So for instance, with something like this. As far as the fight in the center is concerned, this would be a failure for white because the corner is just territory. In this game, the fighting is probably more important. So white didn't go for that variation and sacrificed the stone corner, and is trying to attack black's group on the side. So this is actually, the Kosumi here it's a very important point in the game where white cut off the whole black group and is trying to attack very strongly, but it turned out to be an overplay. The point is that sometimes this is a forcing move against the corner. Say black answers it. Then sometimes white can cut off the one black stone with this move. So there's this combination of 1 and 3 that can sometimes come into play. Okay, and we'll talk about the situation in the corner later. So white should have surrounded from the center. And the thing is that white's group on the outside, it's a very loose connection. So these white stones are not so strong either. And white has to be very careful in the attack. So white's main idea with this attack should be to strengthen white stones on the outside, and hopefully to start building towards, for instance, the top side or that part of the center, and to have a stabilized position after which white can start playing on the left side of the board. So strengthening the white groups should be the main object of this attack. And so if black plays here and white plays here, then we start seeing the threat of Q, so like this threat, which is more direct. So while this move was cutting black off, it was doing a bit too much. So if white had played here and black had played something like this, white would have been satisfied to do something like this, getting a strong position there with some potential on the top side. And so this would be a satisfactory result for white. White did not have to go after the whole thing. The problem with this move is that it strengthened black's connection there, and R14 ceased to be a threat in that direction. And that means that when black played here and white played here, that added value of cutting black off with a move at, let's see, it's Q10, Q11. At this point, this exchange has actually strengthened black when black leaves it and attacks immediately in the center. So this was a decisive point in the game where black's counterattack here got white into trouble. So the game move was here. Let's take a look at the game move first. So this is actually, locally, it's a very effective move in combination with white's previous move here. So what white is trying to do is he's going to cut on the second line, and this is a double threat. So obviously white's threatening to cut at 018. So if black connects in this direction, white has a Tetsuji in the corner. So if you want to figure it out, you can pause the video. The move that wins the semi, I'm going to show it now. Okay, so white plays here. And if black pushes through, white can capture the two stones. So in this case, white could capture the two stones or play in the center first. This would be a success for white. So white would play some more from the center and then finally would capture the two stones to have a living shape. This would be good for white. Otherwise, if black takes here, black's just going to lose the whole thing. So this would be a squeeze that takes away black's eye and reduces black to 3 liberties. So obviously a win for white. Okay, so that was the Tetsuji in the corner. The thing was that the center became more important, and it was not in time. Again, I'd like to mention that this exchange made this whole thing a lot easier for black to execute. So going back a move, if white plays here, what happens? So this is an important question to ask. And black will play here, and it turns out that now black's not going to answer that at all, and we get into a fight like this, which is going to be a race to capture, a semi between the black group in the corner and the white group surrounding it. And the white group is surrounded and is eyeless. So everything is in danger. A fight something like this, it's going to be bad for white. It could turn into a ko or something, but it's going to be very difficult for white. For instance, something like this. In this variation, white doesn't even have an eye there. And so it's going to be an eye against no eye. Well, it's just bad for white. So we'll leave it there. And so the bottom line is that pushing through at 7 in this variation is just too late. And in fact, it was too late in the game when white did it. So just to go back again to clarify, if white had not played this exchange and had played here immediately, then black would have the added threat of this move, which would make it much more difficult for black to counterattack like he did in the game. And now white pushes through, but black is getting a good position in the center. And winning the fight in the center was very important in this game. So white plays here. And yeah, so like this. So black has won the fight in the center. White had to escape towards the top side, is getting some territory there, but black got a huge position in the center. So white covers here. This is threatening the corner. So if black plays away, playing here is a good point in the center, but white can kill this corner. So in this case, first of all, if black plays here, it's just not enough room. It's dead. If black plays here, this takes away black's eye. And yeah, so going straight down here is the key move, basically. Because if white goes with the hane, which looks good enough, black can actually throw in here and make it some kind of a ko. So, for instance, even if white pulls back, it's going to be a ko here. So black will get a ko. If white goes straight down, white avoids the ko and kills it outright. So in this case, black would capture the 3 white stones, but it would only be one eye. So like this, and then here. Okay. So that's why black had to answer that. So black covered here, and white played this exchange in the center. So that was attaching at K9 was a shape move, but it's not really being very effective because both of the black groups are fairly strong already, and white has to play 2 moves to get out. So it's very difficult for white to pull these stones out. And white switched to the left side, the top side, excuse me. Okay, so black is consolidating the center. At this point, black's established an advantage by winning the fight in the center. And so basically what he's trying to do is he's just consolidating that by building that, making sure white doesn't get up to any tricks in the center of the board. Okay, so black was prepared to sacrifice that stone in the top right, but that's actually going to be the final point in my commentary. So again, this move, it was threatening the cut on the left here. So this would capture that white stone on the side and break into white's position on the left side, on the lower side, that is. Okay. So here, actually, the center was still pretty big, and it might have been better for white to play here. And if black answers like that, that would be a good exchange for white, and there would be some small potential. Like if white gets to play here, it would be taking away the base from that black group on the left side also. So extending at 1 was important. It doesn't change the fact that black has already established a lead in this game. So it was already a difficult game for white. But when black added a stone to the center, this simplified things and made it easier for black. Okay, both of these are big points. Okay, this was actually making a threat towards the bottom side. Again, some tactical stuff. White answered here. It looks like a kind of an interesting move. So let's say what happens if white plays away. That would be a big move on the left side. But black can play here and peep. And this would break into the lower side territory for white. So like if white connects here, then black will push through and cut here. And this is a crash. Okay, so white answered that. And black played here. So this is actually a fairly common position in the top left corner where white has played the diagonal move here, the kosumi. And the combination of a kosumi and a pincer, the order can be both orders. So like the pincer can come first or the kosumi can come first. And then some kind of enclosing move. So the combination of these three moves, provided black has been playing away, this happens a lot. And there's always the issue of how much life is there with this black stone. There's various ways for black to try to live. So like many of them in ancient times, hundreds of years ago, the most popular move was this slide. So like quite often you would see a slide, or it could come as the first move here, or sometimes later on in the sequence in combination with moves like this. So for instance, like this would actually, if we assume a variation like this, it looks like black's going to survive. So black did have ideas to slide in the corner, but the more successful move, the more active move is to attach here, and it's the more popular move nowadays. It's the move that you see AIs choose most of the time. So attaching here and playing a double hane is quite often the tesuji. It does require some calculation. At this point, white really has two ways that white might try to kill this black group. So this was the move that was played in the game. So that's cutting and taking the stone in the corner. The other choice would be to play here and then save that stone on the second line. So obviously if white plays here, then black's going to capture this. And in this variation, black actually has a second threat. So there's this threat left over. After leaving the corner, black has this threat. With the D16 point being an Atari from black, it's very effective. So that would be not good for white. So if white plays the Atari from the top, white does want to save this stone in the corner. And if black plays here, it looks like black might have trouble making enough room to live. So actually black will play here, pushing through. White plays here. Again, black cannot cut here because this would just die. So that's not working. And again, playing underneath, that would be a bit dangerous. So again, black would not have room to live. So the correct move is to play here, threatening to cut on the fourth line next. Black still can't cut yet because that would just be captured. But black can crawl here. And in this case, white has succeeded in capturing the corner, but black got the whole left side. So that was a success for black. It was good enough. Okay, so in the game, white cuts. Quite often, this is the more challenging variation, but black played here. threatening a cut at c12, and then played here. And when this happens, it's just not going to work for white to try to capture that, because it's going to be bad for white. So white had to back off, and black got to live in the corner. So at this point, black has established a solid lead, and white didn't really have any chances after this. So this was a good example of how this attachment here is often a very effective move. It's something worth remembering, and there's just the two variations that you have to worry about. So there's the variation where white plays here, in which case it quite often involves some kind of a trade like this. So it involves the pushing through move at 4, which black plays after that exchange. Or the game move where white plays here. In this case, sometimes it just involves this move if black can get enough room. So in this case, black could expand the space by playing this attachment and pulling back. And that made A18 a successful move. If the white pincer at c13 was one line further away at c12, then you might see black use the attachment at e15. But in this case, where white has a solid position on the left side, it doesn't really work. It's an endgame now. So black is just playing endgame moves. Black played 2 stones inside white's area, so lost some territory there, but he had this move waiting to play. So he got to reduce it from both sides. And the final big point, and it's just an endgame now. Here white could have played something like a point like this, and everything would be safe. But he knows he's behind, so he's just maybe he's just setting up a place to resign, because the connection is sort of tricky here. When black plays here, if white plays here, black can play here and break into the white territory. If white plays here, black gets to break into the territory again. So that's how that wasn't working for white. It's not a move that would be overlooked by players of this level. So I would suspect white was just setting up a place to resign the game, because it was hopeless at this point. So I think the most exciting fight in this game was the starting fight, where they got into this huge fight on the right side here, and we got to see how Shin Jinseo used that key point after playing this exchange on the side, making it locally much more effective, but also having the responsibility to continue from that stone at M4. So it was interesting to see that play out. And then the decisive fight in the center, where it's really quite often when you're attacking, there's a tendency to try to do too much. So this move here is a good example of that, where white should have been just trying to consolidate the position on the outside. It would have been still close enough to an even game for human players. Like, I think black might have had a slight advantage, but it wasn't enough that a human player couldn't turn that around. So that's it for today. Thank you for watching to the end. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm planning on making some more videos about the Nongshim Cup. See you next time.